Hello and welcome to another segment of Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. Friends, in this segment we bring those guests who influence our lives. This includes elected officials, policymakers, heads of major organizations and other dignitaries. It is my sincere hope that the knowledge brought in by these guests will help our community. Continuing on our CEO series, we have today CEO of Fortunoff Jewelry Store, Esther Fortunoff. Esther, ma'am, thank you for your time today, this morning, in our newest CEO series. And you are a CEO of Fortunoff, which is a kind of a flagship store, used to be a very popular store in our community. And right now you are kind of in charge of Fortunoff,
Fortunoff
reinvented Fortunoff basically.
Yes.
So first, we would like to go about your personal career and your personal, how did you start it?
Mm-hmm. Well,
So let's talk about that.
I started when I was probably about 8 years old in the Brooklyn stores. My parents used to take me there after school. There was no childcare, and they wanted me to help out and be near them. So I learned from a lot of the employees, how to write numbers. I remember the first job I had was selling clocks. Then I was selling jewelry. And my parents always believed that the children should be involved in the business. And it was a big family business with my grandparents started it. Then their 3 children all went into it.
Oh.
And their 3 children all brought in their spouses.
Oh.
So a lot of family members working, and then eventually all their children, or a large number of children came in. So we ended up with a very big extended family, all working at different things inside this one umbrella business. And in 1964, the family agreed that instead of having these 11 little stores in Brooklyn, in what was called East New York under the elevated train, that they would combine all the stores and put it together into under one roof in Westbury. And so they made the decision to follow a lot of their customers who were just back from World War II. A lot of people were moving out to the suburbs from the Bronx or from Brooklyn, wherever, and many people moved to Long Island. So they decided to follow the customers, put it all together under one roof, and they cut the ribbon in 1964. And it turned out to be like a phenomenon because they had so much merchandise that was unusual and different, great prices, and you could get almost everything there except for clothing, no clothing, but you could buy pots and pans from my grandmother. You could buy a camera at one point from my father's department. My mother started the jewelry division. And so she was out there showing things to customers. So it became an interesting place for a lot of people from Long Island and also their relatives from all over the tri-state area. Because many people remembered it from when it started in 1922 in Brooklyn. So there were several generations of people who had already been to Fortunoff in Brooklyn who then came to Long Island.
So 1922, it was your great-grandfather or grandfather?
My grandparents.
Your grandparents started the store with obviously no idea of how it will turn out to be.
Right. A push cart in Brooklyn.
Oh, wow.
In a kind of like a flea market, which did well, and so then they opened one small store, which was pots and pans, everything for the kitchen and for the home. So they figured even during the Depression, everyone was going to need to be able to have the basics for their home. So that was really the first sort of department. And then it got more, out from the kitchen and bathroom to furniture, and then lamps and rugs and things like that. And out from that to jewelry in 1957.
So like, after the depression, I mean, they, based on the need, based on the customer's need, they started developing the store.
Yes.
That's how it worked.
Yeah. And because in Brooklyn you couldn't necessarily get the next store over,
Right.
they had to get the store across the street or the store down the block. So there were literally 11 stores within a 3-block radius. And so, you know, if you didn't find it in one, well, go across the street to the houseware store. It might be there.
Oh.
So it was quite an unusual situation in that neighborhood.
What I mean, you know, what did you do? Like, you know, you said you started it when you were 8. You were in the stores and selling and learning everything. But obviously, you know, was your goal originally was to be like with a family business, or you want to do something else?
I wasn't sure. Truthfully, I wasn't sure. It was very hard to kind of breathe and think about what I might want to do while I was so involved in this very big extended family business.
Right.
Because even before I went to college, we opened a store in Manhattan. And so it was growing, and clearly there was enough work for everyone to do. I went to school far away, and I just wanted to sort of see the United States. So I was in Colorado, which I love.
Okay.
And then I went to graduate school in Arizona for ancient history and archaeology, which was a really, really interesting pursuit, and I liked it very much. But it was really slow. And coming from the hustle bustle of a retail store, and especially Fortunoff,
Right.
which was always like crowded and just, you know, running around and very, you know, focused on holidays and stuff. And archaeology was just really slow.
Right. Right.
And so we were digging a 4,000-year-old village with like a little trowel and like paintbrush. And literally. So you know, we found bones and we found potsherds and things like that, but I realized that the pace of it was just not, it didn't make sense for me personally. A lot of people went on to, you know, have great careers.
Right.
And actually a few years ago, I took my daughter for a vacation on a dig where we were digging for, you know, 8 hours a day in the 100-degree heat.
Oh.
So, you know, I wanted her to have a taste, but it's just, it was not a good career fit for me.
So, you know, see, like my daughter, right? I have a daughter also, and she also like doesn't like the slower pace. Obviously, but she knew like first year, like, you know, she wanted to go to a patent. She wanted to be a patent lawyer, and patent law is a lot of research, and you have to be behind computer. Immediately, she decided no. But you graduated as an archaeologist. Is that
I had
true?
part of a master's. I never finished the master's.
Okay, but still, I mean, until then, you could not decide that slower pace.
Right.
That's what I mean.
Right. It was hard to tell what it would be like, but of course there was a job situation then, as well as like the past 5 years, where my professor said there's really not a lot of call for professors of archaeology anymore because they're filled, you know, and those people are not retiring very soon. So he did discourage everyone in the class, even though we were all graduate students. He said, if you have something else you can do, you should do that.
Oh.
And so that did influence me.
Okay.
And then my parents, my father really had this amazing way of just saying, we need young blood, we need new thinking, and please come back and go into any area of the business and just see how it is. So for a while I ran the restaurant that we built in the Wayne store and then in Westbury. I learned the catalog business and went on printing runs on the press. And their philosophy was you learn it from the ground up, and then you'll know it and be able to manage other people. So one of my probably greatest experiences was learning the diamond business, because it's the sort of business that has so many different facets, and not to use a pun, but so many different facets, and there are many, many levels to, from the cutting to the sorting of the diamonds, to setting them in jewelry pieces, all the different colors and clarities.
Right.
So I spent many years going on buying trips and observing our diamond buyer, and then learning it myself so that I could know what the issues were, and then just continued to do that. And that became one of my areas of responsibility as I grew with the company. So that when I first decided to come back in, and I went back into the jewelry part, which was after doing the restaurant and a few other things, they said, okay, engagement rings, figure it out, take it over, make it grow.
That's okay. And
So-
that's your father basically giving
Yeah.
you that direction.
Yeah, although my mother was my boss.
Yeah. Oh, your mother was.
So that was interesting too.
Uh-huh.
But and that was what I did, and so I had to learn it from the ground up. And also, you see what goes into making a piece of jewelry. So there's the technical parts of making a piece of jewelry, and then you also learn that it's really the romance that sells the piece, because in the end, a man wants to give a gorgeous diamond. He doesn't care so much what the technical aspects are. But that was really fun. And then I did colored stone buying and other things like that. So the buying was the first area, and we had a very big buying team that I was involved with deeply. And the buying at Fortunoff was really very, very important, because as you said, and other people say all the time, that we had really unique product.
Right.
It's not what you could find anywhere else.
Right.
So we were traveling all over the world looking for young or not so young designers, but who had different things, many of whom had never sold to anyone in the United States. And so we were the first one to bring them in.
Right.
And at one point, we were bringing in so much jewelry from Italy that my mother was made a knight of the Italian order. I mean, they actually, there was a ceremony, she became a knight.
Wow.
Because we, in many ways, introduced the New York area to better Italian jewelry, especially 18 karat, and things that were not just standard chain that other people were selling. And so that was a love that stayed with us always. And actually I have a sister who learned how to speak Italian so that she could be there and really get into it.
Very interesting. So you know, entrepreneurship is in your blood, basically, right? So you didn't need to really, I mean, because of your family and because of, I mean, you learn a lot of things from your family, and you already have inside you. What was your management style? Like you said, you know, you had to learn everything from ground up, right? Now you learned everything. Now you have to hire more people under you. So were you a micromanager, or what was your style?
That's a great question. My father was a very hands-off kind of manager, and my mother was a very hands-on kind of manager. Both of them wanted me to follow in their footsteps. And I think that I was both at different times. But one thing that, maybe because I'm a woman, and I think that there is really a different female management style sometimes, I wanted all my jewelry buyers, like we would have a meeting with 10, 12 people, and I wanted everyone to be able to talk and contribute and come up with ideas. And I think I probably let consensus rule maybe more than my mother would have. But my management style was to try to assign things to trusted people and then let them run with it. But there were always people who weren't maybe as good at something as other people, and so those people I would probably manage a lot more closely and carefully. I know that many times people thought I was tough, too tough.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
But I believe that I was tough for the right reasons.
Okay.
With my jewelry suppliers, I was tough because I wanted the right quality at the right price.
Right. Of course.
So that, of course, that makes sense.
Right.
So people would say, you're so picky and no one else cares about this. And I said, well, you know, to me, it's my name on it. I would want jewelry that I sell to be something that I would want my family or friend to be wearing. So
Right.
it matters to me what the quality is. So that was one way I was tough. Another way was just, I'm not saying I'm a perfectionist, but I did want certain things to be a certain way.
Okay. Okay.
And I also learned that partly from the catalogs, because when you do copy in a catalog and you're printing the hours, you're printing a price or anything, it's got to be perfect, 100%.
Right.
You cannot have a catalog that doesn't have the
Yeah.
correct information.
Right.
And so my father really pounded that into me. And so to this day, I write the copy. I look at every piece of copy, even for the website, because you don't want it to be wrong.
Right. Right. Right.
Because you don't want to disappoint customers. And that's the bottom line.
So ultimate authority will be you. Means, you know, let's say if store wants to buy something and for selling, the buyers will kind of screen through and then come to you.
Yes.
And then
yes.
you will say, yes, I don't need it, or I didn't, something like that.
Yes, that's true. But now, of course, it's a much smaller company.
Right.
So there's only a small group of people, and we do talk about it together. But there are certain things that the buyer could recommend very strongly. If I don't like it, like really don't like it, I'm not going to have it in the store. I'm lucky now enough to be able to do that because I have my internet business and one new flagship store that I've opened in Westbury. And so I want that to be representative of me. You know,
Right.
it's not the big giant store that when my family sold the business, in 2005, there were 6 very large jewelry departments, jewelry and watches, in our 6 main stores. And so there, really, you have to, of course, delegate and just trust the people who are working for
Right.
you. And so I didn't see every piece.
Right.
But what was really great is that we had a corporate culture of hiring from within. And so most of the people who ended up being buyers had started as assistant buyers, or they had started as salespeople or managers in the store. So they really had some history background, and they understood what the customers liked.
Right. Right. Right.
I mean, I never, you know, I marvel at some of the department stores. Well, they'll take someone from the shoe department and make them the head of jewelry. And it's like, okay, maybe, but you know, jewelry does have more aspects than just
Right.
how the thing looks.
Right.
It's really, you know, quite a bit more technical than that. So the hiring from within was something that I think was a strength of Fortunoff. But as I got older and saw that sometimes bringing in someone from the outside could also be very important.
Right. Right.
A new way of looking at things and
Yep.
experience from a different industry.
So how many family members, at highest number of family members, were in the business?
I would say probably 9.
9?
Maybe 10. Then the people in the second generation, unfortunately, passed away.
Oh.
So when their children started to come in, many of them passed away too young, like in their 60s.
Oh boy, sorry to hear that.
So, yeah.
How, I mean, because you know, you just mentioned that your father and mother's style were different. So what was at the dinner table?
We didn't talk about business at the dinner table. That was actually great. It
You
was a
didn't talk.
rule. No. So my father, and that was how we kind of, the whole world came into our dining room. He would pick things from the newspaper, and we would just talk about current events.
Okay.
We would talk world events, Long Island events. And especially because in my family, you had to give back to the community.
Okay.
So everyone was on a board of either a university or some sort of helping organization.
Right.
And so we would all, you know, talk about that. My father was very interested in nature and preserving Long Island, and so he was involved with the Nature Conservancy.
Right.
He also helped with Dowling College. My mother was on the board of Hofstra and ended up being the chairman of the board of Hofstra. We were also active in jewelry areas. So my mother was the chairman of the board of the Gemological Institute of America. I was on the board of the Jewelers of America. I was on the board of the Jewelers Vigilance Committee. So we always did civic things and business things. And we were lucky enough to have enough help that we could do that and really give back to the community. So at the dinner table, no business.
No business. But when was the arguments?
Oh, the arguments were when we met in the store.
In the store?
Yeah. Well, no, not in the store. In the office.
In the office?
The
So you're right,
office.
you're not right, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
But we went around the table and we could discuss why we felt a certain thing was right or not right. I mean, we learned how to build an argument. He was a lawyer like your daughter, and so, you know, he taught us how to make our case. Sometimes
Your father?
My father.
So your mother won the arguments all the time?
No,
or-
no, 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 no.
No?
No, but also we had arguments with other people. I mean, there were the, not arguments, but
Yeah, I mean discussion basically.
discussions
Yeah.
about how
Right.
to attract new customers.
Right.
How better to manage the payroll.
Right.
There were certain things that we did that were not, like we didn't lay off employees after the holiday season. We kept them
Okay.
for the most part, and they were there during the slow times. We gave them a lot of training, and they formed relationships with customers. And so, even though it wasn't profitable certain months to carry such a high payroll, we did that. So that was something that could be an argument, for sure, or what pieces to advertise. My sister and I would have arguments about what things to put in the catalog. But I mean, they weren't terrible arguments, but they were certainly arguments. When we went to expand, many different people with real estate opportunities came and they pitched like the Washington, D.C. area, or someone was Rockland County, and so those kinds of things, everyone would have a different opinion sometimes.
Right. So now, you know, I want to talk to you about Fortunoff flagship store selling a lot of different things, and it went through some kind of a, then it was sold.
Yes.
A family sold the business to a private equity investors or private investors.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Why?
Well, I think
What was the reason?
one of the things when I took a course about business, family businesses, they talked about going from one generation to the other, and how when an older generation doesn't want to work in the business anymore, their money is tied up in the business. And so the going from a third generation or a second generation to a third generation, or third generation to fourth generation, often requires a restructuring of the business. And in our case, people had been working a really long time, and we all worked super hard. People wanted to retire,
Right.
some move away,
Right.
and start to do other things in their life.
Right.
So the majority of the family members at that point who were in the business wanted that to happen. So we started to look for the right company to buy the company or to invest in the company. And I wasn't really part of that search, because there were many family members, as you know, and also some outside management. And so they did a search, and The sale was completed in 2005. And we had said to whoever would buy the company that because it was a complicated business, it had a lot of different areas. I mean, from trucking of outdoor furniture to selling jewelry or making jewelry, because we made a lot of jewelry, are two completely different things. And so in certain cases there was redundant staff because the import department for diamonds and jewelry was separate from the import department, let's say, for another area. But we realized over the years that those things could be modernized and streamlined with technology and computers. You know, sometimes a homegrown business grows up in a way that makes sense in 1990, and it doesn't really make sense so much in 2005.
Right.
And we had a lot of older employees who had full benefits, and we had tuition reimbursement plans. I mean, we were not operating like a normal retailer, for sure.
Corporation kind of.
Right. I mean, we were really a family business, and we took care of the family.
Right, right.
So there were ways that they could save money and streamline, but they didn't do those things. They had their own ideas. You know, when someone buys a business, they have their own sense of how they're going to take it and grow it and whatever. And it just wasn't really the ways we thought. And I don't know that they really understood our business well enough, because Fortunoff was not about giving coupons and having dollars off sales and special days. It was not about that. People knew that they could come every day and find something great at the right price. And so I think they just got off on the wrong foot. Some of what they did was good. Some of it was interesting, different, but not enough. And they started immediately doing gimmicks like, you know, 20 off coupon at a certain time. Well, there was no need to do that, but they did it. And so our core customers, I think, felt that it was different. They didn't believe that it was the same. And things just didn't go well. And then they looked to have additional investors, and those people really had a mentality of a high-low typical department store, not like a specialty store, which is what we really were, a group of specialty stores. And you know, 2008 was very, very competitive, and everyone was slashing prices, and it just, they made a decision. We were not the only acquisition that they had made. We were a small part at that point of a bigger business, and they just said, you know, we're going to just shut it down.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was really shocking. And
painful.
Terribly sad and painful.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, really, really hard.
Right, because you work very hard, all of the family member, and then suddenly they say, pop, out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they went bankrupt in early 2009, and then again, in 2008, and then in 2009. It was just horrible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that, because, you know, I think it all depends upon whether your heart is in or not. That's number one. Second thing is, because of the family members, I mean, there was a lot of, you know, help there, you know, interest, kind of, you know.
Yeah. By that time, most of the family members were not working at all.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because they had wanted to retire, and they did. But we had a very loyal group of managers and executives who had been there, I mean, some for 20, 30 years. And so none of us could really believe what happened, honestly.
And then what happened?
And then we had the painful experience of watching the liquidation of the business which they were going out of business sale for like several months. And when that was over, the intellectual property was with the bankruptcy court, and we had the opportunity, which was, I was so happy that we could join together, my family members and I, and buy back our intellectual property and our name. So that's what we did. We were bidding against some other people at the time, and other people wanted to get a hold of our customer lists. But I really knew I wanted to go back into the business, and I think some other family members knew that it was very important to control our name.
Right.
Because, you know, a name is what you have in business.
Yeah, exactly.
People trust you, they know you, and especially since my grandparents started it, so...
Emotional also.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we bought it back in the summer of 2009, and then two parts of the business seemed to be viable to come back again and be reborn. And one of those was the outdoor furniture business.
Right.
And the other was the jewelry business. Each of them are very specialized, and they were very big portions of the business, and so it made sense. And my cousins who were involved in the furniture and the home part of the business put together a group, and they reopened Fortunoff Backyard Store. It's a joint venture with a company in Texas called Chair King. But all the local management is previous employees.
Wow.
And you know, so that was very nice because they understood that business and they kind of rolled right into it. Jewelry is a different story, because jewelry, you need a lot of inventory and a nicer, more complicated space and more luxurious space. So the outdoor furniture business could be run in a kind of bigger
warehouse
kind of. It's nicer than a warehouse,
but still
but with sets of furniture, and those sets are not delivered from there. It's delivered from a warehouse, and so it's trucking and you know, different kind of delivery service. In jewelry, the person has to see it and wants to buy it, and it's a different different sort of thing. So at that time in 2010, it was like the internet is, you know, going to phase out stores. There won't be stores anymore. It's just going to be the internet. Everyone's going to shop that way. So it seemed like a good thing to try and do. We had a website before that, which was maybe 3% of the whole business's sales. It was small. So my brother David, who was very computer savvy and had at one point even run our IT department, with me, we looked for a strategic partner. In this case, it turned out to be a jewelry wholesaler, and we took up residence inside of their office and put together the website, and really fast. So pretty fast. We had a site up on November 18th of 2010.
Wow, okay.
And it was, you know, just wild, all hands on deck, trying to get all the merchandise photographed and described. To be, you know, open for Black Friday. So we managed to do it, and so right now we're having our 4-year anniversary.
So right now you have only like an online store, or
no?
You still
So
have
I have the online store,
motor.
Which was launched 4 years ago, and then in the past 9 months, I started to feel that I had to open a store. I mean, the whole time that we've had the online store, I have a woman who was in our customer service department. She answers the phone, and every other call is, when are you going to open a store? I want to see the jewelry. It's not good enough to order online. So last December, we did a pop-up jewelry store at the Garden City Hotel.
Okay.
Which took a lot of effort, but customers had been asking, and when are you going to have the store? So we did that, and people were so happy that I knew that I had to just, in earnest, find a location. That jewelry is something that you want to try on. For sure, people trust us, which is great, and so many people did order online, but it's just nicer if you can try it and feel it. And so that was this past year, really starting in like April, has been this process of getting the store open.
Oh, okay.
And so it opened September 18th of 2014.
Tell us about the experience of India when you traveled to India. Many times you did that. Most of our viewers are from South Asia.
Yes. I went first in 1983.
Okay.
And it was really just such an incredible experience on so many levels. I was really just there to observe the diamond buyer at first because I didn't know what was happening. In my company, we were practically the only American retailer to go direct to India to buy. Because, that was maybe wholesalers did it or, a few very big companies. But to have an Irish guy and this Jewish girl, and I was young, walking up and down in this big building called Prasad Chambers in Bombay, it was unusual for sure. And we visited a lot of offices and learned each company's specialty and quality.
Okay.
And of course, these were almost entirely family businesses.
Right.
And they had been very long. I was often meeting with the second generation together with the first generation. I mean, there were always these very older, distinguished gentlemen in the background. And we, got to know each other as family businesses, but also I had to learn what they specialized in. And so the trips would usually be a week, and I would just be looking at these teeny tiny diamonds for hours and hours and hours. Because we were manufacturing a lot in New York, and so we had to know that I had, 20 carats of 2-pointers and 30 carats of 3-pointers and 20 carats of 5-pointers to go into the jewelry. Because they have to be particular sizes. So that was really interesting and a challenge. And I kept going back and going back, because at first a lot of people didn't even talk to me. Yes, my name was Fortunoff, but they didn't think I had any power, and I wasn't the expert. So they were always talking to the man. And then after a while, a few more trips, they started to talk to me.
Okay.
And it was great because I formed important relationships. After a while, this is how far back it goes, we used to fax what we needed. I didn't have to go so often. I could fax and say, okay, I need these sizes, and they would ship to New York. And we would, do a double check. And so then there was a fax business. Then there was the, sort of, okay, send an email. And then many Indian companies came to New York to establish offices. So that really happened in the 90s. And so then I didn't have to go so far.
Just go here, Manhattan.
Right. So then they would come to me, or I would go into Manhattan. So that really changed things quite a bit, which was good for me because I had a baby. And I wanted to see her because, those young years, you can never get them back.
They go by so fast.
I was really glad that, a presence was in the diamond district in New York of both Indian companies and Israeli companies.
Israeli companies,
Because those were my big trips, India, Israel, all the time. Thailand was another trip, but again, we could start to talk the same language and, use faxes and telexes and the phone, and made it a lot easier for me. But my husband is very interested in India. So my husband studied with Srila Prabhupada and actually was part of the Vaishnav tradition.
Oh, is that right?
That's right.
We have a
And
big Vaishnav temple here.
Yes, and he was in India a lot himself before we were married. And so we were lucky enough to take a trip together and went up to Kashmir
Beautiful.
briefly.
Beautiful.
And I went to Jaipur with him. And, you know, India for me, in a way, was just about color and sensory things. I mean, lush, gorgeous greens of the foliage, and then all the spices and all the colors of the spices, and then all the silk.
Right.
And the sari stores. Some of the diamond dealers, they would, until they realized that I really had to be in the office, not just shopping, they would send me with their wives, and we would pick out fabric for saris. You know, gorgeous silks, and that was really fun and interesting. And they would always have me to my home, and I was a vegetarian.
Oh.
And so I ate like they ate, because pretty much everyone in the diamond business is in the Jain tradition.
This I am.
Okay.
I'm from Jain.
Right.
I'm Jain.
Okay.
Basically.
So I was eating like the Jains ate,
Jain,
so that
right,
was
Yep.
good and made life much easier for me. So I always learned a lot about the history of India and understood a bit about religious practices, and then from the business side. So I think I got a pretty good idea of what was, you know, what the culture was like. It's been amazing to see what's happened in the last 20 years, from women in the diamond business, for one thing, and women going into jewelry manufacturing, which when I was first there were so few women.
Probably none. I guess I don't, because you're all basically family men.
Right. Yeah. But the women in the family were not working.
Not
hardly.
working. Right. Yes.
So that was a very nice change. And of course there are factories that are doing manufacturing in the seeps, and that started, you know, in the last 15 years. So I've seen tremendous changes.
So you like Indian food, basically?
I do. I like Indian food, the vegetarian.
Are you vegetarian now?
Yes.
You are? So I was at the event yesterday. There is a vegetarian vision. It's been going on for almost 22 years in this country, promoting vegetarianism, basically.
And where was that?
The event was, every year they have an event. So this was a Thanksgiving event yesterday in Long Island, and but the foundation is started like 22 years ago to promote vegetarianism. What is the benefit? I mean, there are a lot of benefits of being vegetarian.
There are a lot of benefits.
Yeah,
there are.
Yeah.
Spicy is a little bit difficult for me. And sometimes it's hard when you travel to other countries to be vegetarian.
Right.
I'm sure you've had that.
Oh, we have always, yep, I agree. That we always try to make sure that they have vegetarian food.
Right.
first.
In fact, I never go on a business trip without some peanut butter in my luggage.
That's it.
Because it's hard to get protein.
At least.
Right. I mean, it's hard to get protein in certain places.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming here and sharing your experience and your wisdom and your family with us today. And certainly we'll hope to see you again sometime soon.
Yes, it's been my pleasure.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us here. If you have any question, comment, you can email me at rajmitv@gmail.com. That again, rajmitv@gmail.com. You can watch our prior shows on YouTube at youtube.com/Infosys International. Again, that youtube.com/Infosys International. Until next time, have a great week.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.